Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind. The mainstream media is at it again. Can anybody say massive gaslight campaign? Well, I'm sure you can, and that's exactly what's currently going on. Don't you love it how Joe Biden can kind of fumble all over himself, then one little good thing happens that probably didn't even have anything to do with him, and the media goes on and on praising Joe Biden's incredible victory. Wow, what an amazing economic recovery. The guy stubs his toe, takes a frickin' Tylenol, and the media will probably declare it a day of triumphant victory for little baby toes all over the world. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is breaking frickin' records, knocking it out of the park, trouncing his opponent in the primary in her own home state by a historic margin, and somehow it's a massive loss and a horrible showing for Donald Trump. Yep, the gaslighting campaign continues, or it really truly begins at this point. I want to get into what all the big brain analysts in the media are saying. I want to debunk all the nonsense. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so we've obviously seen the results. Donald Trump wins in South Carolina in spectacular fashion.
President Donald Trump moved closer to locking up the Republican nomination with a double-digit win over Nikki Haley in the South Carolina primary. Trump defeated the former South Carolina governor 60% to 39%.
A huge 20-point victory. But according to the Blue Anon freaks at MSNBC, apparently the South Carolina primary was a disaster for Donald Trump.
37% who voted Haley, who would they vote for in a general election? Lawrence needs to wait. I mean, this is like your sweet spot. How is Joe Biden looking at this 37%?
These numbers are disastrous for Donald Trump. Disastrous, okay? That's the reason I mentioned that the big forgotten number of South Carolina, which is Joe Biden getting 96%, okay? That's what you're supposed to get, all right? And Donald Trump's not going to come close to that. Donald Trump's going to leave 30%, I don't know, 25%, whatever it is. Of
37%.
Not yet. We don't know. We don't know what the result of this election is tonight, but it's going to be a very substantial number. Could be a third of the vote. He's going to leave that on the table belonging to another candidate. All you need is 5% of the 30%. Yeah. We're talking about a sliver. Yeah. That's all you need to not vote for Donald Trump, of this representative kind of voter in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, in Georgia. And so these are disastrous voting results for Donald Trump in the general election.
These numbers are, quote, disastrous for Donald Trump. Really? I find that real interesting. Rich Barris really puts it into perspective. There are two records from last night. Former President Donald Trump set the record for the most votes received in a South Carolina presidential primary, more than doubling the previous. And Nikki Haley now holds the record for the largest margin loss in a home state for an unsuspended candidate. So Donald Trump literally got the most votes ever, doubling the previous record. Nikki Haley lost by the worst margin in a home state primary for an unsuspended candidate, and somehow it's a bad night. Make it make sense. Obviously, it doesn't. I'm seeing so many copium arguments coming from leftists all over the place, attempting to gaslight you into believing this nonsense. Nikki Haley overperformed. I mean, did she really? No, of course she didn't. Here's the Real Clear Politics polling average. All the most recent polls right ahead of the primary pretty much showed the exact result. So the result was expected. In fact, it was eerily similar to the polls. As you can see, there's the final results. Donald Trump got 59.8%. He was expected to get 60.8%. And Nikki Haley got 39.5%, where she was expected to get 37.5%. Pretty much identical results and pretty much right on the money. And it gets even closer if you omit the USA Today poll. I mean, they're a garbage pollster. Just use the 3 credible survey groups on the list, and you pretty much get the exact same result. In other words, it wasn't a disastrous, shocking night. It was pretty much exactly what we expected. Nikki Haley was expected to get right around 40% for 2 specific reasons. It's her home state of South Carolina, that's reason number 1, and reason number 2, it's an open primary where registered Democrats are able to participate in the Republican primary process. There's no big disastrous conclusion for Donald Trump to draw. That is a media manufactured lie. That's what MSNBC and Twitter activists are trying to sell you, essentially as a desperate, panicky counter to the reality of the situation.
Trump delivering a crushing blow to Haley in her home state on Saturday, trouncing her by nearly 20 points with nearly 60% of the vote. The former president dominating nearly every key group in the South Carolina Republican primary electorate, according to NBC News exit poll results. Trump now setting his sights squarely on the general election.
The leftist reaction to that clip, of course, is as predictable as ever. That Kristen Welker clip represents the reality, so let the Democrat copium begin. LOL, 40% of Republicans voted against him. How can he win? I guess these people don't know the definition of an open primary, but I know where they're getting their information from. Probably from this clown at Fox News.
Is this 59% of Haley voters who say that they would not vote for Donald Trump should he become the nominee. That tracks with about 24% of the Republican Party, which
the new narrative has been set that a massive swath of Republicans are now refusing to show up and support Donald Trump. Therefore, he can't win in the general. It's an interesting theory, but the only problem is it's frickin' fake news. Brian Krasenstein writes, "This should scare former President Trump to death." 39% of Nikki Haley voters say that they will not vote for Trump in the general election. That works to about 24% of Republicans in South Carolina. This jumps to 33% in some polls if Trump is convicted. Could you imagine if 24% of Democrats said they would not vote for Joe Biden in a general election? And so the idea that's currently being pushed is that Donald Trump isn't palatable. He's unelectable in a general election because Republicans are now refusing to support him. This is nonsense. First of all, if that actually was the case, don't you think it'd show up in general election polling data where Donald Trump continues to dominate Joe Biden? Yeah, pretty much nothing has changed. In fact, in the most recent Harris X poll, Donald Trump's above the 50-point margin nationally. I mean, that's gonna mean something, right? Then let's tackle the idea that supposedly roughly 25% of Republicans are refusing to support Donald Trump and refusing to vote for him. Let's just delve into the latest Harris X poll. Womp womp womp. In a head-to-head matchup with Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, Donald Trump has support from 90% of Republican voters, 52% of independent voters, and actually 13% Democrats. Joe Biden has less support from the opposing party at 10% for Republicans, less support within his own party at 87% Democrat support, and less support with independents at 48%. In other words, Donald Trump is more popular within his own party than Joe Biden is. Yet the media will push this manufactured nonsense. Republicans are turning on Donald Trump. It's not true, it's a lie, it's fake news, a media manufactured narrative. You know, everyone wants to overanalyze these results, extrapolate the numbers. Actually, her 40% support indicates that 24% of Republican voters won't vote for Donald Trump in the general, as they push up their glasses. Oh, actually, every election nerd coming up with their own fancy theory. It's a bunch of pseudo-intellectual nonsense. At the end of the day, there's only a couple questions that really matter. This one, are you better off now than you were back then? And how enthused are you to vote?
Are you better off now than you were in January of 2021?
No, I'm not. I mean, that's me being honest. I'm working 5 times harder. When I calculate everything, hours worked to amount of money bringing in is nowhere near as high as it was in 2020 or 2021.
How do you feel?
I worry. I mean, I have 2 kids who are 19 and 21. What I'm reading and hearing about the job market, I'm scared for them. I'm really scared for them.
I don't think the Trump team is currently panicking. There's nothing really to panic about. A huge, monumental, historic victory for Donald Trump. And of course, the Nikki Haley grift simply continues. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.